Welcome to our introductory tutorial series on Microsoft Word. In this video, we'll give you a broad overview of Word. In this video, I'm going to introduce you to Microsoft Word and give you a broad overview of what it's about and how you can very quickly get started with it. I should mention at this point that these tutorials are going to be done in two versions of MS Word, and this version here is Word 2000. And I have another one open here, Word 2003. And as you can see, there's not a massive difference between them. Here's what I've done, is I've tiled the two versions of Word on the screen so you can see them next to each other in this way. And as you can see, there's very little difference. Okay, there are some cosmetic differences. Some of the icons look different, and some of the interfaces look a little bit different coloring and so on, but it's pretty much the same functionality. And even though Microsoft does update Word regularly, for example, there's Office 2000, Office 2003, and there's also Office 2007, and sometimes there are other versions, let's say less important versions, even between those. Going from memory, before Office 2000, there was Office 97. And obviously, the 97, the 2000, and the 2003 refer to the years that the version of the software was published. Obviously, Microsoft likes to release new versions of software because it then gives people new versions to purchase. But as I've said, there isn't a massive amount of difference between them. There are new features occasionally, and sometimes they do get a bit easier to use and a bit more powerful, but really, for day-to-day use, you're not going to notice much difference. And to be honest, on a personal note, I still use Word 2000, and I find it works perfectly well. I only once had to use Office 2003 because it had a feature I needed that 2000 did not, but I'm getting ahead of myself here. Now, let me give you a quick guided tour of the interface, and let's actually look in Word 2000. As a broad overview, you have menus. These are menus, and these menus have lots of options to allow you to do different things in the software. So, File menu, Edit menu, View menu, Insert menu, Format, Tools, Table, Window, and Help. And you also have toolbars. These things here are called toolbars. I'll go into this in more detail in a later video, but just very quickly, you can grab them and move them around if you want, or put them back. Okay, let's see if we can organize that. There we go. And there are a lot of options or actions you can take in the toolbar as well. For example, B to make the text you've selected bold, or italic, or underlined. And really, any options in the toolbar are available through the menus. It's just a different way of working and a bit of a shortcut effectively. Again, as this is a guided tour, I won't cover this in much detail now, but I will go into more detail later. And here are views. There's Normal View and Web Layout View, which isn't noticeably different at the moment. And there's Print Layout View. So you can work in Word in different views depending on which way you prefer to work. And there's also Outline View. These views will become clearer when I dive into them in much more detail in later videos and really start bringing some examples up. Okay, let's go back to Normal View. That's how I usually work. And at the bottom, there's the status bar, as it's called, and it tells you what's going on. So, Page 1, Section 1, Page 1 of 1, and Line 1, Column 1, and currently the language is English UK, and that can be changed very easily to English US or any other language. Okay, what you do, let's say we're writing a letter. So let's say your name and your address, and what I'm doing is simply typing. Your address, line 1, And when I want to go to the next line, I simply press the Enter key on the keyboard. Your address, line 2, and zip. As I keep mentioning, I will go through this quite quickly now, but I'll really slow this process down as I start getting into much more detail in later videos. So you can select the text, and I can indent it, and I'll indent it as far to the right as I can before it wraps over. Okay, it's wrapped over, so I need to go left indent, or decrease indent rather, and then I need to put in the address of the person I'm writing to, so John Smith, any road, any town, USA, let's say. Dear John. Okay, I was going to come to this later, but as this has already popped up, it's worth mentioning that this is what's called the Office Assistant, and it tries to help you as you work, and you may find it helpful. Generally, I find it a distraction, so I generally remove it. So I just click Cancel. But you may want to have it there when working with Word, and we'll cover it in depth later. Okay, so Dear John, line 1, or let's say instead paragraph 1 of my letter to you, paragraph 2 of my letter, sincerely, and your name. So very quickly, that's how you can do a letter. And if you want to change the font style, you can select the text by clicking, holding, and dragging. And here you have a number of fonts available. And here, if I click this, the most popular fonts, or the fonts I use most regularly, at the top, so Times New Roman, Tahoma, Courier New, and Arial. And then it lists all the other fonts I have, and it also gives you a little preview of how the font looks. So let's say I want to change the entire letter to Courier New. You see the font changes. And now, because the font's changed and it's wider, these lines have wrapped over. So I need to select that and move it to the left, decrease the indentation. Okay, that's fixed that. And the reason they wrap over is because there's an invisible margin here, and the margin was hit, so the line's wrapped over. So you can change the font. I can select all and change the size. By default, it was 12 points, but I can change it to 14 points. And that's how 14-point Courier New looks. Or I could, for example, select my address and bold it by pressing the B for bold, and it makes it bold, you see, and so on. I could make lots more changes as well. You can even do things such as inserting images, inserting pictures, although obviously that isn't particularly relevant for a letter. But let me just show you an example quickly. So I'll press Enter a couple of times there to make some blank space between these lines. And let's insert picture. And let's go with clip art. Clip art is effectively a library of images that come with Word. And you can see you have some different categories. Let's go with animals. And okay, let's add this picture. Click, Insert Clip. This option previews clip. And let's just insert. And it's done. It appeared in the background here. Let's close this. And there it is. So we've also inserted an image into our letter. So you see, effectively, Word allows you to desktop publish. You can create quite complicated layouts, and you can manage pictures, multiple fonts, multiple sizes. You can do columns. You can do tables, all sorts of things. And this will all be covered later on. Finally, you need to save your document, of course, so you don't lose your changes and can come back to it later and continue making changes. And when you're ready to, you can File and Print. Or let's do Print Preview. That gives you a preview of what it will look like when it's printed out. And even though it looks very similar to what you have on the screen, because Word is a WYSIWYG editor, and WYSIWYG stands for what you see is what you get, even though it's a WYSIWYG editor, sometimes things can look a little different when you print them out. So Print Preview is useful in this way. We can zoom in, click to zoom in, and just check what we've just done. Okay, it all looks good, and when I'm happy with that, I could print it out. Anyway, let's close the Print Preview screen for now. And we're back to the main editing screen. So that's effectively what Word does in a nutshell, and the main elements of the screen, and how, if you want, you can follow along with this letter and start creating your first Word document.